check. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the speaker series. I'm not Tom Kowalski. My name is Nick Sands. I'm just a hanger-on who decided I would take the job of introducing our speaker. Our speaker tonight probably really needs no introduction to the Sausalito Yacht Club. In fact, he has a long and distinguished career as a sailboat racer, different on the bay and in other areas of the world. He has a Pacific Cup under his belt, and he won his division with that, and of course all the races that go on San Francisco Bay during the year. In fact, I have him to thank for introducing me to the club back in 2000 something. Okay, who's counting? So Pat Broderick was a member of this club a bunch of years ago. He was, I think, on the board, or he was race chair. He had positions here and in the cruising club over time, and so probably no stranger to you guys. So Pat this evening is going to talk about a voyage he took on a, well, he'll tell you what kind of vessel, but from quite a major voyage across the Pacific this last summer. So I'm not going to steal any of his thunder because he's got plenty of his own. So without going on too much, everybody, Pat Broderick, our speaker tonight.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And yes, it was a great adventure. And thanks, Nick, for the intro. Nick and I spent a lot of time together on his boat and my boat, and a little bit of a story about how we met. I was sailing a wonderful old beat-up Santana 22, and I got a call from the club saying that there was this man who wanted to go racing, and he would be down in the dock, and I said, sure. So I came and I stopped, and this guy with a strange accent jumped on the boat, and we went sailboat racing. Later I discovered it was the wrong man. In fact, we're two men who were going sailing, and Nick was scheduled to go with someone else. But he stuck with me and sailed on the most beat-up looking Santana 22 in the world for a few years, and then we've done a lot of sailing together, and I love him. My plan this summer did not involve sailing on a 200-foot ship from Honolulu to Tokyo. My summer plan included a week up in the San Juan Islands on a schooner called Zodiac with the Lewis and Clark College Alumni Association thing. But I read one morning in Electronic Latitude online that this Dutch clipper ship was coming from Panama to San Francisco, and then it went on about how it was going to continue on and you could take a ride. And Nancy and I talked, and before long I was in touch with my new girlfriend in Amsterdam over the internet about everything, and it was arranged, and then I was destined to sail across the Pacific Ocean. I'd always sort of wanted to do something like that, but it never really looked like there was I'm not going to sail my little Wildcat 30 across. I did sail it to Hawaii, but I'm not going to sail it to Honolulu. So the dates were we left Honolulu on April 9 and we arrived at Yokohama. We didn't technically get to Tokyo, the boat, the ship. The boat stopped the ship stopped in Yokohama and we had to take a taxi into Tokyo, but that was the trip. And what I want to do tonight is sort of run you through how it went without getting really too technical about things. And this is, in fact, not Das, well, that's a German ship. Stad, Amsterdam, city of Amsterdam. And the trip from Honolulu to Tokyo. It's a full-rig clipper ship. They make a very big point of saying it's not a replica. It's a newly designed modern ship with a clipper ship rig, essentially. Steel, all on modern electronics, and a bow thruster if you want to get that way. When I arrived on the ship, this is the screen that greeted me. At 1 o'clock, I got comfortable and I met my Canadian bunkmate, cabin mate. Since I don't drink, I didn't have a drink on the outside bar, but that's okay. And about a half an hour later, the lines were tossed off and I was on my way to Japan with no stops in between, so there was a commitment. This is Captain Andy. He was the captain of the ship. Stad Amsterdam has two professional captains. They alternate duty. The captain who sailed the boat to San Francisco left, and Andy took the boat to Hawaii and then on to Honolulu. In that interesting way that it occurs in Europe, he's Swiss, but has a Dutch passport and lives in Germany. This is the deck plan of the ship, the forecastle deck, the main deck, and the after deck. The ship was built in 2000 in Amsterdam. It was built by the Randstad Corporation, which is an international company that is an employee-employer type thing, and in cooperation with the city of Amsterdam. It spends a lot of its time in Amsterdam and on day trips, or you can rent it for a wedding or reception at the berth. Normally, it goes to the Canary Islands at the beginning of summer, and it makes 2 passages across the Atlantic to the Dutch West Indies and back, and then it goes up to Amsterdam where it stays and basically does day trips, or as I say, you can rent it. There was a daily routine that I learned on actually day one. I was on the white watch, which is in the black square there. Breakfast 07:30 for the blue and the day watch. 8 o'clock for my watch. Lunch for the red and the day watch at 11:30, the blue watch and white watch at 12, and so forth. And then at 10 o'clock each day in the morning, and at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock every afternoon, there was smoko. And smoko was held when the weather was good on the after deck, and it was a break time. Everybody showed up. The hospitality folks brought up trays of fruit and cookies, and often a cake and coffee and tea and things like that. And we stood around for about an hour and visited with each other. those who smoked, and I never saw one of the passengers smoke, but many in the crew did. That was a time when they could smoke, hence the name Smoko, I was told. So let's begin with a few details about the ship. Let me read them to you, get them out of the way. It was built in 2000 at a cost of about 10 million euros. It was refitted in 2013 with a new engine and well, actually almost everything in the engineering department was new in 2013. New 1,000 horse Caterpillar main engines, 200 horsepower Caterpillar auxiliary engine that drove the generators and the other systems from the ship were sailing. And it was also outfitted with a very elaborate water sewage system. It made water, so the water we drank came out of a water maker. And the gray water that was being from the sinks and the showers and things like that went into a treatment plant down below where it was cleaned and it came back as toilet water. And the black water was processed in a sewage system plant and then was dumped overboard. But it was dumped overboard in a fairly clean kind of situation. Underneath, below the main deck, the engineering, it was just a maze of equipment. Most of it under the quarterdeck, but some of it forward, and it kept the ship ecologically meeting the EU standards. Full rig ship has a foremast, a main mast, a mizzen mast, bowsprit. It has headsails on the bowsprit, outer jib, middle jib, inner jib, mizzen staysail jib, so forth. It has square sails, although none of the sails are really square. They do have four corners, but none of them are square. It has staysails between the main mast and the foremast and the main mast and the mizzen mast, and it has a spanker, which is the fore and aft sail at the far aft end of the ship. Stad Amsterdam is 60.5 meters on depth. That's about 200 feet. The overall length is 76 meters. That's about 250 feet. Beam 10.5 or about 35 feet beam. The air draft is 46 meters or about 152 feet to the top of the mainmast royal. The deep draft is 4.6 meters or 16 feet, and the sail area is about 2,200 square meters, roughly 24,000 square feet, or again, roughly about half an acre of sail. The sail speed is listed at 16.5 knots. The engine speed is 11 knots. It has over 800 wooden blocks for the running rigging, and it has three masts and 17 aluminum spars. That's essentially the ship. The sails, I'm only going to show you one mast because one is sort of enough. And I'm going to show you the foremast. The lower sail is a course. That's what the name of the sail is. It's not a sail, it's a course. So the forecourse, the largest sail in the mast. Above it, the topsail. And then above that, the top gallant. And above that in red, the fore royal. Now, because of the way this picture was taken, you see the main skysail, but that's actually on the main mast behind the foremast. It just sticks up so you see it, so I put that in black. Now, I want to come around here and point to a couple of things. The way ships like this work, you have the sails, you have the clews in each of the lower corner. They are attached to the boom, or the spar. And then what's important is this particular spar, the upper topsail spar, is on parallel beads, and it is lowered. And the same thing is true for the fore royal sail above the top gallant. They are, when the sails are taken in, the spar is lowered, and the sail is, so when the sails are off or up, you see a big gap in the mast, and you'll see that a little bit later in the presentation. These are the controls on the foredeck, and they control the head sails, or most of the head sails. One of the things that you will learn about a ship like this is there's a port in the starboard side, and they are mirrors of each other. So on one side you have the starboard controls, on the other side you have the port. And in almost every case, it takes two squads of crew to work the sails, because one has to be on the port side and the other has to be on the starboard side, because if you take up on one side, you've got to let off on the other side. And so there's a lot of coordination that goes on between the two crews that are adjusting the sails. Here you have the headsails being doused, and they're out on the crew is out on the foot ropes. These are the controls for the sails on the mizzen, on the foremast. And again, they mirror each other. Looking up at the foremast, in this case, we have the stunsail set on the starboard side of the ship, which is the left side of your screen, but you're looking immediately above the picture at forecourse and then going up. The stunsails are extended out from the ends of the spars on stunsail spars, which are slid out. I'll talk more about that too. This is the main mast, and again on port and starboard you have mirror controls that control the various lines that lead up to the sails. And it almost looks like maybe there are two masts here, but you've got the fin rail on the deck, and then up the mast a bit, you have the spider band that has more of the controls on it. So on that particular mast, there are sort of two levels of places where sail handling lines are attached. That's okay. I put this slide in here to show you something about a square rig sail, about a square rig ship. It never sails downwind, because if it sails downwind, then the sails on the mizzen mast block everything forward of that. So you're always reaching when you're sailing. They don't go upwind very much. They sail about 60 degrees, 70 degrees off the wind, so it takes a long time to get anywhere upwind. Another picture of, these are pictures of shot accident. And here you can see how the spars are at almost right angles to the, well, almost in line with the hull. That's about as far as they can sail off the wind. Here are the control lines on the starboard side for the main mast. And one of the things I'd like you to do, because I'm going to come back to it, is look at how pretty much even the bottom of those coils are from the deck. We learned very quickly that making up lines was important, and that you didn't do it sloppily. And if you did, the bosun came along and threw them back down on the deck, and you recoiled them. And they liked them to be just about 6 or 8 inches off the deck and leave them line. These are the controls for the mizzen mast. Along with the square rig, square sails here, you have the controls for the spanker, or the fore and aft sail that is mounted on the mizzen mast. 240 control lines that are adjusted when the ship is sailing. And maybe more important, really important here, is that you adjust the sails one at a time, starting at the bottom. So when the wind angle changes, the deck is littered with line, tossed down, and then one by one, you adjust each of the sails going up to the new wind angle. And again, it takes the crew on the starboard side, port side to work in coordination to get the spar braced at the right angle that the bosun wants it. Here on the mizzen mast is the spanker. I was told, or we were told, that the spanker was just very seldom used. And one day the decision was to unbrail it and deploy it. And this is the spanker pretty much the way that it appeared when it was fully unbrailed and set. I know that the crew didn't set this sail very often because they got out the book and spent a lot of time looking at the book, figuring out how to get the thing unbrailed, but they spent more time trying to figure out how to brail it back up because it's brailed up against the aft end of the mizzen when it's not in use. It was kind of interesting to watch them. I'm just going to go through a few pictures here of the ship with the sails. And you might ask, well, how do you adjust the sails? There are no winches, so you adjust the sails by heaving on whatever line it is. The sheet, the cut line, the clear line, whichever it is. And in order to get leverage, you sit. And you line up and you heave in unison to the command of the bosun. What do you do aloft? Well, you go up. Now, I was 84 years old when I left Honolulu, and I was 84 years old when I got to Tokyo, and I was alive when I got to Tokyo because I was a 100% deckhand, which is to say that for the whole trip I kept both of my feet firmly planted on the deck. I was one of these. I wasn't one of the ones up in the up in the mast. Here again, a picture of the main mast. Just a pretty picture of the sun coming through. There were windlasses, and here you have the crew. At this point, they're raising the mizzen topgallant spar. As it turned out, a little later, we found out there was a secret. And the secret's this panel right up on the bulkhead right here. Because if you open the panel, that's where the switch is that turns on the electric motor that makes the windlass go around without you having to stick a stave in and being, you can see the crew member there giving them commands. But it was still fun to hoist it using the hand method if there was time. It took about half an hour for us to raise it by hand. Where did it go? If you turned the electric panel on, it took 3 minutes. So frequently the crew just said, screw it, and turned on the power and the spar went up. Here you have a picture of from the main mast looking at the foremast. And at the very top on the royal, you can see the clews hanging down. The bunt lines are tensioned in the bunt. The bunt is the middle part of the sail. The leeches are the lines on the outside edges of the sail. The belly of the sail, the part that has curve in it, is the bunt. And going down each of those sails are 4 or 6 bunt lines that pull the foot of the sail up to the spar to strike it. Oh, and there was another machine on board. This is the anchor windlass. We only anchored once in Yokohama Harbor, and I'm happy to say that when the time came to raise several tons of chain and anchor, they opened up a panel and turned on a switch, and it clanked its way back on board thanks to Mr. Watt, not thanks to the crew. Lots of hauling on lines, and by the way, that's my Canadian roommate there on the left. And here you can see in this sail the butt lines. They're the vertical dark stripes in the middle. They're attached at the foot of the sail to a block at the top. They run over to the shroud. They run down the inside of the ratlins to the rail and to a blade pin on the rail. And they're fed down along the inside of the ratlins in a strip of wood that has holes in it. And I didn't do it, but if you're climbing the ratlins, you need to be careful not to step. You want to step on the rope part, not the solid part, because if you do that, you step on this fairly narrow piece of wood that snaps, and you prove that your safety harness works. Here you have more sails. The tops. The masts are not one piece. There's a lower mast, there's an upper mast, and there's a royal mast section. And each of them is connected to the other, and at each of those 2 connection points, there's a top. And on Amsterdam, the tops did not have lubber holes. So you had to climb over the buttock lines to get into the top rather than go up through the hole in the middle. When you got up there, I was not there to take this picture. When you get up there, this is what it looks like. And I put this in just so you can see dimensions. Those are 4 crew on the left side of the main coarse spar. Here you have him climbing up. Both the professional crew and passengers went aloft. Anyone could go aloft who felt safe about it. This gives you a side, sort of an example of how large the spars were. They're at their thickest point about 3 feet in diameter. They're hollow aluminum extrusions. You can see the foot rope that they have their feet in, or on rather. And below that, on this sail, you see the wooden spar. That's the studsel spar. That slides out beyond the end of the aluminum spar, and that's where the studsels are rigged. This is the mizzen. This is the foremast pin rail. That's what it looks like when it's neat. This is what it looks like when it's being worked. The deck is just covered with line, and being careful to walk was important. And you can see them making up the lines, and before long, there it is. And notice again how neat the bottom of the coils are. Again, working on the main spar. And there you have someone climbing over product lines into the top. I didn't do it, but you climbed up and you unhooked. So for a moment you were unhooked. You reached over the top, snapped the other end of your safety line into the line up there, and then you continued climbing over. More neat rope. It got windy, and the boat does heel. The bunks had lee boards, but they were almost not quite twin size bunks. They were not pilot berths. And I got lucky because most of the time the boat was heeled this way to port, and in my cabin I was on the inside bunk, which meant that I was up against the bulkhead, and across the little space, my cabin mate was clawing, as the lee boards were low, was clawing on the lee board, trying not to fall into the space between the bunks, which he managed to do several times. But again, more working. There you have a whole crew up. You can see the feet and the foot ropes. Get an idea of dimension, the size of things. And here you can see the safety hook in the line above the person on the right. And you can see how they have their feet in the foot rope. And you'll notice on the right side, chain, there along with boat. All of the rope on the boat was artificial, no hemp, it was all synthetic and unforgiving. It was rough. But where things needed a lot of tension, there was cable and steel, and cable and chain. That's me and yellow outfit on the bottom in my West Marine pants. Here we are. This is looking forward, and the other end of this line is at the foremast. We're at the mizzen, so it runs under and around, and it goes all the way up, and there are people all the way heaving on it. Making up sail. The sail had to be lifted up and furled. Look on the deck. You can see how when you're working these sheets and bunt lines and the other controls on the sides, along each side of the ship. You throw it onto the deck, and you worry about making it up later on. This is a picture, that's the putting on, getting it furled, and below the wooden piece is the stencil spar. Now here you can see how the spar has been lowered, and if you look at the mast, you'll see most of the mast down below is white, but above the two spars, it's not, and that's where the ferrule beads run when this spar is hoisted, and it can be hoisted up to the top, which you see there. And even though it's made out of aluminum, it weighs half a ton. And that's why it took the windlass to hoist it up, and here's more working the sails. There were halyard here. Stencils. These are the sails that are added to the outside of the square sails to allow extra wind, extra drive in lower winds. We had 12 of them. There were 6 on the foremast, 6 on the mainmast. But most of the time, you only set the windward stencils, not the leeward ones. The leeward ones are pretty much masked by the sails behind them. We did put up all of them a little while, but it didn't last very long. More stencils. You can see how the wooden spar at the bottom left has been run out. There's another loose spar at the top, because at the top the stencils are square, that's essentially hinged on the mast, on the spar bottom. Even when it rained, we sailed the boat. And it did rain. And I put an arrow in there to show you the safety lines we rigged when it was slippery. They were rigged on the foredeck, the main deck, and the mizzen deck. And when it was windy, the boat did a little bit of bouncing. Okay, that was all about the sails. Any questions about sails? They were worked 24 hours a day. When I was in my bunk at night, I could hear what was going on up above, and I could tell when things were being changed because there was a lot of thumping and banging over my head. Galley, here's the galley, and it's compact, but it had everything it needed. There were 2 cooks and a helper in there, down in the galley. Here is the food. It was cafeteria style. The one tray is gone here, but this is breakfast. Starts with bread. Those are sliced cheese. Those are sliced cold cuts. And what's missing and isn't there is the scrambled eggs or the whatever we were having that morning. And all. And then at noon, you had bread, you had cheese, you had cold cuts, you had salad. And we joked that the difference between breakfast and lunch was, for lunch they put out mustard for you to make sandwiches. There we are eating in the long room. This is the long room. This is the dining area. It's because of its dual purpose. There's a bar, which we did not use as a bar. We put food on it, but you can see the tables and the chairs here. When we were sailing, the chairs were attached to hard points on the deck, and they allowed a little bit of movement, but not a whole bunch. But they are now allowed enough that if you were not careful and you got sideways, you could get tipped out of them. And then my drink of choice, Earl Grey. And then we have mayonnaise. Has anyone in here spent time with anyone from the Netherlands? Does anyone have any friends from the Netherlands? Okay, my suggestion is that you go down to Cost Plus and stock up on mayonnaise. The Dutch put mayonnaise on everything. That bar you saw where they had the condiments, breakfast, mayonnaise was there. Lunch, mayonnaise was there. Dinner, mayonnaise was there. And it really didn't matter what the food was. It got a lot of mayonnaise. This is the back of a T-shirt that one of the Dutch guys had who was advertising the brand of mayonnaise. There was a small library with lots of books about sailing. There was an honor bar with nutritious treats on it. Around behind this, there was a cooler that had beer and soft drinks that you could buy charged to your cabin. I was kind of amazed. I don't drink beer, but I was kind of amazed at these Europeans. We've all heard about European beer, nice, solid, dark ale, and whatever. They love the Busch Light. That was what they drank, and they assured me when I asked them that it was delicious. I guess it is. My cabin, my bunk's on the left, my bunkmate is on the right. Enough room between the pads. Little night table in between us. Storage. This is the head in our cabin. A toilet, a sink, and a shower. And this is, if you look at it carefully, the boat healing. Taking a shower with the boat healing was an interesting sort of lean against the wall event. I don't think for a few days my back got very clean because I could only lean against the bulkhead in the shower, and that allowed me to wash the front of my body, but I couldn't get around and wash the back, and if I turned around, I suddenly found myself propelled down to the other side of the shower. There was a lot of amenities on board, including a big wash system. If you wanted your clothes washed, had a mesh bag, put everything in a mesh bag. They took them down and boiled them in water. It was like 180-degree water. Dried them, and you got it back within usually half a day. This is just the passageway in front of my cabin. That's the main mast coming down through the deck, going down to the keel. When it didn't rain, they rigged sunscreens and navigation. You don't want this guy driving your boat. The boat had a very elaborate, very efficient auto helm, which would steer it as much as everyone wanted to. But if you wanted to steer, you could stand and watch steering. So we also turned steering. Some were better than me. In the main, in the cabin, modern instruments, night version of radar and the AIS screen. You can see that this particular screen shows wiring the ship. Modern forecasting, this, oops, I'm sorry, modern weather forecast. This was the projected course from Honolulu to Yokohama or Tokyo. And so you maybe can't see it at the bottom, but Hawaii is at the bottom. This is from San Francisco. Hawaii is at the bottom, and that's our track to Honolulu. So that was sort of what was planned there. And we went pretty far south. There was a big high right about where the bottom left corner of the square is. And we did spend time going through the high. We sailed about 77% of the time, and we motored 23% of the time during the 28 days. Instruments, they look a lot like the ones on our boats. Heading, boat speed, but hidden behind the panel underneath those instruments is the engine controls. And 1,000 horsepower push the boat along at about 9 knots at a comfortable number of RPMs. Again, controls. And just to prove that the boat did heel, there we are at 20 degrees. And on a boat that's 35 feet wide, 20 degrees means one side of the boat is about 15 feet lower than the other side of the boat. So literally going from the low side to the upside was almost like climbing a hill. Oh, I forgot, we're rolling, so about halfway across, the boat rolls the other way 20 degrees, and now instead of going uphill 20 degrees, you're suddenly going downhill at 20 degrees, and nothing in front of you but a bulkhead or something that's going to stop you if you don't manage to stop yourself. Ship activities. This was a party in Yokohama when we got there. It was as dressy as it got. Peggy even had a dress that turned out. I never saw Peggy in anything but jeans and a sweatshirt or something. But she's from Vancouver, BC, and she showed up in a dress. I still don't know. Some of the activities were nautical arts, and people made giddy bags and other things out of old sail and rope. Even the crew members were doing it. Mark from Roanoke Park, a retired elementary school teacher, brought a lot of stuff. He brought a whole bag full of things, and he did a lot of fancy rope work and things like that. There were knots, more bags, more artwork. And then Peggy from Vancouver is an artist, writes children's books. So she kept a log. And this is her log. There are 2 pages from her log. It's very fancy document. Vilma, tying knots, more artwork. Festivities. The Dutch liked festivities, and one of the big ones was King's Day on April 27th. The official King's birthday in Denmark. I think, doesn't England have an official royal birthday that doesn't coincide with the actual? I think that's the case here. It was a big deal, and my understanding is back in Amsterdam, it would outdo a combination of Cinco de Mayo, St. Patrick's Day, and anything else all put together, from what they said. It began with the shooting off of the cannon in honor of the king. Nice picture. Great picture. Somebody really knew where to put himself, and really thanks a lot for the applause. and orange. The House of Orange is the royal house in the Netherlands. So everybody who knew about it brought things that were orange. And here's the King's picture on the after deck. That's me down in the bottom. And the hospitality crew sewed things for each of us, the little napkins, which we wore like this. Little embroidery thing of a ship, the Dutch flag, which is the French flag turned on end. They say that it's better than the French flag because as it flaps in the wind, the back end of the flag gets worn off, and so the Dutch flag just gets red, white, and blue shorter. Whereas if it's a French flag, it gets red and white because all the blue disappears, and so they think it's superior to the French. And we are all given a thing in honor of the birthday. For the final meal, we actually had steak and roasted potatoes and so forth. They removed we were at Anchor in Yokohama. They removed the chains from the bottom of the chairs and put for the first time, real dinnerware out. And I'm at the captain's table there. That's Captain Andy, who, in honor of this particular occasion, for the first time, wore his official captain's shirt with the epaulets and all that stuff. Other than that, he just wore the regular blue cruise ship, crew person ship like everybody else. Birthday parties, there were 10. This is Vilma's. Every birthday party at the Smoko in the morning had a cake. There was some sort of gift, usually something from the ship's store, a mug or something from the ship's store, and a document that gave you happy birthday, told you where you were when your birthday this year occurred. And this is one of the cooks. When you get to wear this multicolored jacket shirt for the day in honor of the package for birthday. Vilma declined. She had the ability to decline. Halfway across, there was another festivity, halfway cafe with special food. And then we crossed the international gate line. And it was on April 17, well, maybe it was the 18th. It sort of depended upon where you were at the time. So you get April 17 here, and you get April 18 up there on the beach. You can see the line across there. When they got going here, they put a rope across where the dotted line is up there, and we had to jump across the dotted line in order to get into the future. And so the theme was Welcome to the Future. And the hospitality crew made aluminum helmets with antennas, as in aliens, and got all dressed up, and certificates were handed out. And there's my certificate. I'm now officially a day older than I was 10 seconds ago. Smokos, I mentioned that. There's a tray of coffee and tea and food and crackers, and you sit around and you visited, you rested. I wasn't the only old guy. But I was one of the old guys. And then we have Dutch Memorial Day. Dutch Memorial Day, May 4, is a day that is their day of remembrance. This is the figurehead. Her name is Annie, and that gold tear in her eye is mourning the Dutch who were lost in the Second World War, both the civilians and the military, and the Jews, and the Dutch military in particular who have been lost in peacekeeping activities in the years since the war. And so I'm going to talk about Annie a little bit here. She graced the bow of the ship. You can see here that her right breast is exposed. That's to please Neptune, who is down below looking up, and it doesn't bother him to see naked breasts when he looks up. In her right hand, she is holding a globe, which indicates that the ship has been around the world. Her right hand is extended, and her right hand is extended with the peace sign or the victory sign, depending on how you're feeling. One, it was victory over fascism in the Second War, and or it's the peace sign for the future. She's not wearing shoes because she plans to go swimming. And she's wearing a sash, and that's the house flag for the company that owns the boat, the ship, that's on her waist. And the second here, that's Annie. You have to look carefully, but she's wearing a wedding ring. And the wedding ring represents the union between the company that owns the boat in the city of Amsterdam and their union to build the ship and to maintain it. It all has symbols, and it really meant a great deal, particularly well to the Dutch on board. Those symbols meant a lot. Celestial navigation, everybody took a hand at it. And then you went down below, and when I learned celestial, there was sight reduction tables and sheets of paper and all of this sort of stuff. Now it's a computer. You put your lines of position in the computer, and zingo, there you are with the triangle. And it even puts a little dot in there where it thinks you are inside the triangle. A lot easier than sitting around for an hour and a half trying to figure out what page of the sight reduction tables and how to do that. I'm proud to say that I did it. And I'm more proud to tell you that when I did my little computer thing, I was very, very accurate. I was in the North Pacific Ocean. Could do it by hand if you wanted to. Some of them were doing it that way. Whales, yes, there were whales. But before we got to the whales, the only thing we saw between Honolulu and Yokohama, well, until we got off the coast of Japan, the only thing we saw that had any human hand involved in it was this steel drum that came floating by. I think this steel drum probably appears in about 1,000 pictures because everybody ran to the port side, got their cell phones out, or those of us who had cameras got our cameras out, and just clicked away. We saw it come by, and it was the first thing we saw, and it's probably immortalized in every picture book that comes out of this thing. Humpback whale, and a small one. More whales, fluking, spouting, fluking, and then red-footed boobies. We didn't see many birds, but we saw red-footed boobies. And they stayed on the boat for several days. They roosted on the bowsprit and the forward lines. Then we saw dolphin. Sunsets. There were sunsets almost every night. Instruction, yes. Here's my watch captain on my crew, the White Watch. He's talking about something that he's going to teach us. Here's Peggy looking at the chart of the various lines. We didn't have to learn them, but most of us tried to learn as many as we could. Coiling a line. Now, I should have said something earlier. Coiling line appears to be easy, but by the time this line gets coiled, there will be 10 coils high. And then they'll put a dowel through the middle and take it down and sew it in the engineering compartment on like a spool. So it has to be put down very carefully on top of each other. It's not like the mooring line at the marina. There was a model of the mast and sails and control lines that we used to learn. And they used the deck and sidewalk chalk to give us lessons on what was what. And here you are looking at a square sail. You can see the bunt lines there. And then when you bunt everything up, it sags in the middle. And the nautical term for that stuff that sagged down was this saggy ship. Get that shaggy ship up. Bunt it up. Here is a square sail. You can see the tack and the sheets on the side. You can see the bunt lines. You can see the clew lines, you can see the leech lines. Those are the control lines for each one of the sails. Wearing ship. We wore ship a number of times, and of course this is not a picture of us doing it, but it shows you the fact that you have to brace the sails on all three masts at different angles, at different points as you wear. Now, wearing ship is jibing in square sail lingo. Tacking is dangerous. Tacking puts immense pressure, particularly on the mizzen mast, and in anything less than very light air, it's too dangerous to do. The rigging is not strong enough on the mizzen mast and the forestay, or the bowsprit rather, to do that. So we wore ship, which is to turn the stern of the wind, the sternage through the wind. This is what it looks like on the chart plotter. It takes about an hour to fully wear ship. Sometimes it took a little longer, and that's from beginning the process to turning the ship to the other tack and then setting the sails again. Because every one of us, remember we're talking about all of those square sails, both sides, being adjusted multiple times. There were also other things. Here's water temperature. They took samples of the water temperature in the ocean and recorded it, and it's warmer than it has ever been. There's the thermometer. An instruction sheet on how to set the stencils. It was foggy, and we did maintenance. The ship was varnished from stem to stern, the whole direct, but it was not varnished. It was a Danish oil type thing. Blocks required their wood; they required repair, and I love this because this is a Dutchman making a Dutchman repair on a wooden block. Remember we call it wooden patch a Dutchman. Never mind. Here's a block that's been Dutchmaned several times. You can see them there. Varnished, hanging in the 4-peak twine. Those blocks that could not be removed and replaced, the standing rigging, someone went aloft and sanded them down and finished them off. More places that needed special attention were taped off. You got sent to the corner if you were a bad crew member and got to varnish in the corner. Here's the 4-peak. I know this crew member is making a bag, but just to show you, the machine shop in the 4-peak was pretty complete. Other rigging that couldn't be lowered, you got hoisted up to work on it. Making a splice in a cable, working at the end of one of the spars. All of the bollards were completely chipped and treated with several chemicals and then painted. And then we got to Japan. And here's the Japanese courtesy flag. There is Fuji behind the buildings in Yokohama. That's the lighthouse on the right. I wrote a poem about the haiku, actually. Don't worry, don't look at the text in the middle. That's what the poem. Mountain's power, the atomic power humming, which will erupt first. And given Japan's record with atomic power plants, I'm guessing that probably will be the power plant. Heaving the monkey's paw to the crew at Yokohama. Japanese flags thing were there. And here's the sum total. From San Francisco to Honolulu, 2,500 miles. From Honolulu to Tokyo, 4,000 or so miles. Total of 6,500 nautical miles. Hours, 314 to Honolulu, 590 to Tokyo, 904 total hours. Sailed 88% of the time from San Francisco to Hawaii, 77 from Honolulu to Tokyo. And then just for kids, the kicks they throw in a few other statistics. 110 liters of yogurt, 220 dozen eggs, 500 kilograms of fruit, 280 loaves of bread, 10 birthday cakes, and 60 kilograms of cheese. A few pictures of the crew. Again, this is King's Day. And someone who just sailed 4,000 miles across the Pacific. Now, in case you wonder what things cost, 4,000 miles across the Pacific came out to just about $1 a mile for the fee, which included everything on the ship. And the questions, the official language on the ship is English. Everything on the ship is in English. All of the instructions, all of the instruments, everything, and the language. There were Dutch, there were Belgians, there were Germans, there were Spanish, there were French, there were several from the various Balkan countries, there was an Irishman, there was an American on the crew. And in the guests, there were some of us from North America, quite a few from the Netherlands, one from Spain, several from Belgium, one from England. He was the other old guy, he was 83. And among all of those languages, English was the language that we used for everything. And it always amazes me and humbles me when I hear all of those people from all of those European countries talking such perfect English, when I wouldn't have a clue about Dutch or Belgium, or I could get along in Spanish, a little bit in French, but I was totally lost other than that. So thank you for being here tonight. It's 8 o'clock. Any questions that I might answer that I perhaps didn't cover while I was carrying on? Okay? Oh.
So you were pulling, but did you actually have power backup for all of the lines, or some lines had to be manual?
Well, the question is manual versus power for lines. I suspect that there were windlasses on the main deck and on the foredeck and on the after deck, and I suspect that other lines could be fed to them. But the only use of the windlass was to hoist the upper topsail boom. That was, everything else is by hand. You brought it down to the pin rail. I'm left-handed, so it was hard for me. You put it around the top of the belaying pin, you palm it, hold it pressure against the top of the rail, while you come under the rail to the bottom of the pin, come back up, come around, palm it, come around again 3 times, and then put a half hitch in the top of the pin. But it was all, everything was manual with the exception of hoisting the upper boom. Yeah, it was all, and it really did take 8 or 10, sometimes more people to heave it in. I was one of the weaker ones at my age, and so I always got to be down at the end. They never wanted me to be first in line. They wanted me to be down at the end, because by the time it got to me, all I was doing was taking the line behind me and coiling it, keeping it out of the way. I wasn't heaving. No, everything was done by hand. And it went on 24 hours a day, and it very seldom was more than a couple of hours between some sort of adjustment on the sail trunk. It was a busy time for that. Okay? Thank you.